Hi everyone, and thank you for watching. Today, in this video, I'm going to talk about wanderers. Yeah, wandering around, but the wanderer that I'm talking about is soul wanderers. Soul wanderers. And I'm also going to go through the video and explain why it's important to know this or useful to know this. And I'm going to explain what a wanderer is, their purpose, and you can figure out if you yourself are a wanderer or if someone close to you or not close to you is a wanderer. This is just basically spiritual knowledge. So in order for me to explain this and dive in, I think I should start from the bottom a little bit. Now, on the planet Earth, there are the majority of the souls that incarnate here on Earth. They incarnate over and over and over again. They're constantly recycled, and they're doing their own evolution, their own soul evolution, to better themselves, to learn lessons, to upgrade, to graduate. They're going through many cycles. We all are, and we're all at different points in our journey along these cycles. We're at different points in the cycles and different points along our path. Now, a wanderer is quite different from other spirits that incarnate here. There's many different types of spirits that incarnate here, but the majority, they incarnate over and over, and this is pretty common to them, and they're used to this type of environment, and it doesn't freak them out or anything, or they feel just really out of their element. Now, a wanderer is quite different. And the reason why a wanderer is quite different is because they're usually not from this planet. They're from another dimension or another planet, usually. And wanderers are typically sixth-dimensional entities. So you have a sixth-dimensional entity coming here to the 3D Earth. And why would a sixth-dimensional entity come here? Because it's quite risky for a sixth-dimensional entity to come here to the 3D, to a lower vibrational world. They come here to do work. They come here to raise the vibration of the planet. They come for specific jobs like that. They're here to polarize the planet and make everyone harmonize. And the reason, usually it's a sixth-dimensional entity that incarnates as a wanderer. There can be lower dimensional entities that incarnate as wanderers. Could be a fourth, a fifth dimensional, but usually it's a sixth-dimensional entity because they are very pure and they're driven on pure ideas and pure intentions. Now, the majority of six-dimensional entities are extremely positive, but there are some that are on the opposite end of that polarity. They could be negative or very self-serving. And a negative polarity six-dimensional entity would very unlikely choose to come here as a wanderer. It's usually a positive, someone on the positive polarity of a six-dimensional entity that will come here and do this, because it's a very big sacrifice. And a negative polarity entity, they're probably very selfish, and they don't want to come here and take a big risk, because they take a six-dimensional entity, actually anyone that, especially a six-dimensional entity, when they come here, they take a big risk. And the big risk that they take is because when you incarnate here, you get amnesia. You lose all the knowledge of who you were and all the work that you've done, and that's necessary for you to incarnate here, to have amnesia in order to do the jobs that you do. or do the job that you're supposed to do. And the danger of having amnesia and forgetting that you were a sixth-dimensional entity or a higher dimensional entity is that you may get caught up karmically by being here. Maybe you'll get caught up in a situation where you end up doing something wrong, or something where you acquire negative karma. And when you acquire negative karma, then you could get recycled back here again in the 3D in order to get that to fix that karma. Or if you're really unlucky, you could acquire even more negative karma on your second time around, where you came back to fix the previous negative karma. So you could really get sucked in. This is a big risk, and a negative polarity six-dimensional entity, they could get sucked back into that, and just they could lose all that they gained. And they're very selfish, and they're under the umbrella of forgetfulness. So they could easily just lose a lot of what they work for, and the negative entity is just not willing to make those types of sacrifices or take those types of chances. So it's very unlikely that it'll be a negative entity that comes here as a wanderer. It will typically be a positive sixth-dimensional entity, but it could be a fifth, it could be a fourth-dimensional entity. Now, what got me interested in this is I start seeing a lot of very relatable things. I start seeing a lot of things that I felt that applied to me. And I'm going to go through the video, and I'm going to later on I'm going to go through a checklist to find out if you are a wanderer or if you might be a wanderer. We cannot really know, because we come here under the veil of forgetfulness. A lot of we can kind of our subconscious can tell us who we used to be, and we can kind of pick up on these things, and we could rediscover ourselves in this life, but we truly don't know. The only way we'll know is when we leave this world. And sometimes some people know and find out. They know and find out through experiences, usually like really traumatic experiences. And typically the reason why trauma, and sometimes it could be a concussion. I've had multiple concussions because of the work that I used to do, the passion that I used to have. I used to like fighting, so I've had multiple concussions. And here's what happens when you have a concussion, or you have some life-threatening situation, or you have some big huge traumatic shock in your life that just really takes you into just really exploring your usually this stuff takes you into exploring your spirituality, and some people become more religious. Some people just it makes a big, deep, profound change in who they are. And a reason for this, or what may be a reason for this, is that let's say you're unconscious, so temporarily you leave this body, you leave the 3D. And when you leave the 3D, think of it as your third eye completely opening up once you leave the 3D. The way you see here is not the way you see once you leave this body. They say that you can see your entire life, past, present, future, all at the same time, simultaneously. Let's say in the fourth dimension, where usually this type of stuff happens fourth dimensionally. So during that time where you were unconscious, or where you had this huge shock and you left here for a while, you were exposed to a huge amount of knowledge. They say your life flashed before your eyes and that type of thing. So let's say you're unconscious for 1 hour, 5 minutes, whatever. You get a huge education. You get a tremendous education during that time. And you come back here, and education is a change in behavior. If you're learning but you're not changing, you're not really learning. Education is truly a change in behavior. If someone learns something and then they change, they become someone else, they truly learn. But if you learn something and just ignore it and never use it, did you really learn it? So a lot of times when people have these situations where they're exposed to the fourth dimension, when they're usually in the third dimension, they get a huge education that transforms them. So yeah, what got me interested in this, where I learned this from, what made this, I guess, popular among the public. I mean, it's no big secret or anything. There's a book called The Law of One, and in the book, The Law of One, the book is basically a written transcript of something that really happened. And in The Law of One, in the book, there were some researchers, and the researchers, it was back in around 1980, 1981. These researchers, they what's the word? They channeled they channeled an entity by the name of, that called themselves Ra. They channeled the entity. They used a person's body to channel an entity, a spiritual entity, a six-dimensional entity that called himself Ra, that said he was a six-dimensional entity. And they asked a bunch of profound life questions about anomalies, about things that we seemingly can never know. Just really important questions that people ask every day, but you can never really know. And the answers they got were quite profound. And a lot of them didn't really answer any questions, but they were very insightful. And, you know, whether you believe this or not, I think if you're communicating with an entity, let's say a six-dimensional entity, and from your 3D mind, your 3D reality, it's very hard to comprehend what they're talking about because of the way that they see the world. Like I just mentioned just a moment ago about you going from the 3D to the 4D. In the 3D, you can only just see now, but in the 4D, you can see your entire life simultaneously at the same time. Imagine that, mind-blowing, right? So imagine, you know, talking to a six-dimensional entity that has just a different eye view of everything. So during this session, at one point, they talked about wanderers, which in a moment I'm going to look at an insert from the book, actually like half a page, and I'm going to take you through it. I'm gonna read the transcript from it, like half a page. And I'm going to read it, and as I read through it, I'm going to kind of explain the things that you probably don't know if you're new to this or unfamiliar with this type of thing. And as I read it, it's going to kind of give you some more insight and take you more in depth on what a wanderer is and how a wanderer fits in this whole scheme of things and what it means to you and to everyone else. It's going to do a lot more than me just doing this talking now the way I'm doing. So I'm gonna go to the book and read that half of a page, and then after that I'm going to take you to a checklist. It's from a website. It's actually the second website that I found about wanderers, and I'm gonna read about 10 different characteristics of like how to know if you are a wanderer or how to know if someone else is a wanderer. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to tell you about myself. I'm going to tell you about my how these things relate to me, and I think that'll make it more relatable, more realistic, and I think it'll help you understand this better. It'll make it it'll bring it to life more. And then I'll end the video by reading a couple of paragraph passages on what is a wanderer. It'll be verbatim, word for word, and I'll just read the passage, and I think that'll just really tie things up. So I think this whole thing is going to be going to really encapsulate what a wanderer is in your mind. Oh yeah. One more thing before I go into the Law of One, the passage from the Law of One. Yeah, it's really important. A wanderer, when they come here to this earth, earth is usually quite hostile to a wanderer spirit incarnating into these bodies. And when I say hostile, I mean things like these people end up being outcasts or freaks. They feel like they don't belong. They have mental problems because of the huge difference in the dimensional differences between where they are and where they used to be, and all the distortions that come with that. So these people have it pretty tough coming here, and I think to a degree that helps them find out or remember what they were, that they're actually wanderers and they're here for a specific purpose, and it helps them get on the job quicker. A lot of us don't know why we're here, and we find out. Some of us find out early in life. Some of us find out later in life. But and then once we find out, we really start focusing on that part of building ourselves and focusing on that. But a lot of us just we just have fun, and I don't want to say waste time, because none of this is a waste of time. Life is beautiful. Every part of life is beautiful and precious. But they get distracted from why they're here. I'll just say that. And even some wanderers also, they have issues with like allergies. Like it's hard to digest food well, and they have a lot of issues with their body and adapting and just basically fitting in. And it is I get the impression, and it's my personal opinion, that like a lot of people that are in prisons, and in USA, prison culture is kind of a big thing. And you go to another country, prison culture is relatively irrelevant, but there's probably some equivalent in another country or in another part of the earth where that kind of compares to prison culture, where you're in prison but you're not really in prison. But a lot of these people who can't adapt to society, I think they end up in prison, or even like a homeless person. In America, homeless culture may be different from in another country. Homeless culture, a homeless person somewhere else may be much better off than a homeless person in my country. But I'm using USA as reference. And I think a lot of these people are wanderers. Not all of them, but I think a lot of them are. And some of them, they go to prison or they go homeless. They end up being homeless, and they feel very comfortable where they are. They feel more comfortable than being in regular society with the rest of the world, and they flourish in these situations. Some people go to, like, for example, some people go to prison and they come out way better than they were, and then they let them out, and then they destroy themselves again, whether with drugs or with a life that doesn't serve them well. These types of things. So wanderers have a big job. They have a lot of adversity coming here. It's really a difficult place to be for a wanderer. I think especially if they don't learn why they're here. And one of the biggest reasons that they're here, and I've heard others say it, and I believe it also. They're here. Their main job is to raise the vibration of the planet Earth. And like, we all have jobs here. Like, even if you're not a wanderer, you have your own missions, your own spiritual goals, your own spiritual lessons and usually those spiritual lessons are tied to other people and various relationship dynamic type of things. But with a wanderer, they're usually not tied to people. And this is part of the reason, like, I look deep into myself to try to find out if I am one of these people. And I'll talk more about it later and explaining why. But wanderers, they tend to not be tied to people. They feel like out of touch and kind of out of this world. And I'll talk about that more in a moment. But I think we should stop here and go to the book and read like half a page of a couple of this transcript from the law of one, and I think it'll take us deeper into understanding about this. So let's do that right now.